Welcome to this tutorial where I'll guide you through just enough Python for data professionals. Whether you are diving into analytics, data science, machine learning or AI, this crash course will equip you with the absolute basics to start tackling real-world data tasks. No flap, just what you need to get things done. Hi, I am Nohum Tewi. I'm a data professional coach and a builder of data solutions. I specialize in business analysis, product management, as well as handling analytics, data science, machine learning, and AI-related projects. So let's dive into it. First of all, let's look at what we shall cover in this course. So I'm assuming you are an absolute beginner and you don't have any experience in Python. So we shall start by installing Python and other necessary tools. So having done that, we shall go straight into learning what's just enough. Here we shall learn the syntax, variables, and logic tailored for data-related tasks. And number 3, we shall look at the key data-related libraries. So there are a number of libraries like Pandas, NumPy, Matplotlib, and others for data manipulation and visualization. And finally, you'll have a hands-on project, and here you will build a simple end-to-end project to analyze and visualize real-world data. This can also act as a portfolio project for you to showcase your experience. Before we go any further, someone could be wondering why Python. So there are a number of reasons as to why we choose Python for this particular course. So one of them is Python is dominant in data and it is used by over 90% of data teams for its simplicity and powerful libraries. And number 2 is Python is the best language for automation. So here, for those of you who deal with Excel and other tools, let's say SQL, Python can help you to simplify and replace all the manual Excel work with scripts for cleaning data and generating reports. So number 3 is Python is so easy to learn. Okay, that is self-explanatory. And number 4 is you can easily scale your skills. For example, you can begin as a data analyst, and again you can now advance and grow into advanced machine learning and AI workflows. So having said that, someone might be wondering, okay, what are some of the requirements? What are the prerequisites? So one thing I'll say is this course is designed for absolute beginners and you don't need to have any experience in Python. And also one thing I would have to note is you need to carry your curiosity and desire to learn and solve problems with data. Having said that, let's now jump straight into just enough Python for data professionals roadmap. Alright, so this roadmap is designed for someone with no experience. However, anyone can follow it to master Python. I mean just enough Python. So you don't need to learn Python as if you're a software developer, but rather you're going to need Python that you need to handle all your data-related tasks. So let's dive into it. So the first thing that you're going to do is to install Python. Okay, there are 2 options that you can go about this. So the first one is you can install Python via Anaconda, and of course you can also utilize VS Code. So for Anaconda, once you install Anaconda also comes with some pre-installed libraries that you can use. Okay, so from there you can go straight and access your Jupyter notebooks. That's one. Number 2, in case you're to go through VS Code, you'll have to first of all install Python from python.org, then go ahead and install VS Code, and finally you can access now your Jupyter notebooks via VS Code. This is a very simple process. In fact, if you have VS Code, this becomes so simple. And also, some people may not be interested in installing Python for one reason or another. So if you cannot access Python locally, then you can also utilize the Google Colab. So Google Colab gives you access to notebooks that you can access online. The only downside to it is you always need to have internet connection for you to be able to run scripts. So once you install your Python, now you're going to move on to the next step. And our next step will be for us to master the Python basics. Okay, so for the basics, we look at you master the syntax, understand variables, then from there you look at the data types. So after looking at the data types, you go ahead and learn the data structures in Python. So from there now we shall proceed and now look at what we call the conditionals and loops, and of course now you also look at functions. So some people may wonder, there is also what we call object-oriented programming, where you look at objects and classes. So I don't encourage you to learn this at this point as a beginner, as this is a little bit more advanced, okay? But in case later on in the future you need this, you can easily learn it. Now, also I would say that most of the packages that you're going to deal with, let's say Pandas as a package, has data frames. Data frames are objects, but you would not need to create them from scratch, as this is already a pre-built within Pandas. So having mastered that, now we proceed on to our next. Here we look at the key libraries. So we only learn what we need. And here at the key libraries, we focus on, first of all, focus on data manipulation and analysis libraries. And here you need Pandas, NumPy, Matplotlib, Seaborn, and SciPy. So this will help you to manipulate, clean, and analyze data. And now if you have interest in machine learning, now you can go ahead and also learn machine learning libraries like scikit-learn and PyTorch. Once you have this, now I believe you're good to go, and now you can now start working on portfolio projects. So this is what you need to showcase all your experience, and also this can help you as a beginner to show that you can actually work perfectly with Python. Now someone might be wondering, they are saying, okay, we've not seen anything like AI and so on. I always say this and emphasize, you asking about AI is like asking whether you need a computer or a laptop. Of course, as you learn, you have to leverage AI when it comes to debugging and also doing things faster. But before you to utilize AI, I request that you first learn the fundamentals such that life becomes so easy for you. So thank you so much for this. Let's now dive into it. All right, let's now dive into our very first step, that is installation of Python and other related packages. So we are going to start by looking at how you can install Python from Anaconda. So basically go to your browser and search for Anaconda. So Anaconda download. So it will land you on a page like this. Select Anaconda, download Anaconda distribution. I'm using a Windows system. Here you can now just straight click on this free download. Okay, so now you can skip registration, and once you skip registration, you now have these different options. So I'm using Windows. If you're using Windows, you have about 912 MBs. So you download this, go ahead and install it. So for this case, you just need to keep picking the default options, install this and get done. In case you get any challenges, kindly, there are so many tutorials on YouTube that can guide you on how best to install Anaconda. And once you're done with it, then you can go ahead and search for Jupyter. There will be a Jupyter app, then you select it to start a server. Okay, and now we are good to go. We have our Jupyter here. So you can now select wherever you want to start your projects. Let's say I can go on my desktop, add new folder. Okay, so I can rename this folder. Go back to desktop. This is the folder. Right click it, rename, and I call it Just Enough Python. So I'm able to rename. So I open my Just Enough Python, and now I can go ahead and start a Python 3 kernel. Okay, so when I select that, now you can see that I have a notebook opened. So there is this message of migrating to notebook 7, don't show anymore. All right, so I have my notebook here, and now I can go ahead and print. The commonest is hello world. So you can see I can now run my code, simple and clean. Okay, so that's how it works. Okay, number 2, someone might want to use Jupyter Notebooks in their VS Code, so that's also possible. So basically the first thing you're going to do for that case, you will go back to your browser, open a new tab, and now go to python.org. So this is where you can download your Python. Then go to downloads. Now you can maybe select Windows already. You now have all the Python releases here. So you can see Python 3.13.1. So I would recommend that you go with the latest. So for example, this is the latest. So you can now go ahead and download this, okay, and install it as well. All right, so once you download and install it, the next thing you're going to do is now to go ahead and download VS Code. So you can always get VS Code from the Microsoft Store. So go to Microsoft Store, but also you can get this from your browser. So from Microsoft Store, it's taking longer. So as it loads, I'm going to go to my browser and say VS Code free download. All right, so I am able to see this here, okay? And now you can go ahead and select for Windows the version of Windows you have. If you're on Ubuntu, you can select this, and if you're on Mac, you can select this. So Windows, select this. Go ahead, still follow the steps, download and install your VS Code. So once you've installed your VS Code, you can now go ahead and search for VS Code. Okay, VS Code. And now once you search for VS Code, for example, I have this interface. You go to File, and now go to New File, and now you'll have these options. So go to Jupyter Notebook. Okay, so you can see my notebook is here, and we are going to do the same. We are going to print Hello World. So you click on this play button, and now for the first time it is going to request for the Python environment. Okay, so I have I'll select the latest 3.13. Then now if you don't have these requirements, it will connect, it will download the requirements, and basically after that it will run your program. So you'll have to go through that step. So for example, now you can see that I have my print Hello World. So that is how you're able to download the Python and other necessary tools for you to get started. So number 3 is sometimes maybe you don't have the time, or if not, the installation has failed and you have access to the internet. So you can basically utilize what we call the Google Colab. So Google Colab works like just any other notebooks. So how do you get to Google Colab? It is so easy. So basically go to your browser and search for Google Colab. All right, so the first one that comes, colab.google, go there. And once you're there, you can see there are options, open Colab or new notebook. So you can even choose to go to new notebook. So once I click on new notebook, so a new notebook will be authorized and opened here. So there are some release notes here. I'm not interested in them. So you can see that still I can print Hello World. So I'll click on this run button, and once it's done, you can see that Hello World has been printed. So those are the 3 ways you can actually utilize notebooks. Either first of all, you can use Anaconda. If not, you can access them through VS Code. If not, you can utilize Google Colab. But for the purposes of this training, I'm going to utilize basically notebooks through Anaconda. So thank you so much. Let's meet up in the next one. So the very first thing that we're going to master or look at when you're mastering Python is the Python syntax. Now let me take you back to the languages that we speak, okay? So the English that I'm speaking right now, or my local language, that is Luganda, that I speak. In fact, in Luganda we greet Olyotia is how are you is Olyotia, okay? So there is a particular syntax that we follow. So a syntax is basically, these are basically rules, okay? The rules that we follow are for us to be able to communicate effectively and efficiently. So the same applies to programming languages. So programming languages are there to help us communicate to computers, and therefore there must be a particular set of rules and structure that we should follow when we are communicating to these programming languages. So I would say that a syntax is a set of rules and structure that define how programs are written in a programming language. This helps us to specify how correctly to combine symbols, keywords, and operators to form valid statements or expressions that the computer computer can understand and execute. So that's basically what a syntax is. We are going to learn this slowly by going through the data types, the data structures, the conditional statements, and so on. By that, we are going to master how Python works. So let's go straight into it. So first thing we shall do is to initialize our Jupyter Notebook. So I will go to hit my Windows button and search for Jupyter Notebook, then I select it. So it will take some little bit of time for it to create or initialize a server where I can be able to interact with my Python through the Jupyter Notebooks. So that is done, and now I am able to access my notebooks. Remember, I created my notebook on the desktop, my folder, so it's here just enough. So I'll open it, and now I have this notebook. Okay, so I am going to select it and rename it. Okay, rename is here, and rename it just enough Python. All right, so rename. So what then after renaming it, I'll select it to open it. Okay, so my notebook is here. I wrote a simple program to print hello world. Now, number one thing about the syntax is if you want to display anything on the screen, okay, or to display the results in Python, we use the print statement. For example, print hello world. In this tutorial, I'm not going to take you through how to utilize this Jupyter Notebooks, okay? But in summary, if I want to run anything, I'll basically come to run, okay? So this will help me to run a cell. So when I click on it, a cell will be run. Now, in brackets, now this shows the number of times I have run this. So if I run it again, it will increase to 2, okay? You also notice that I am putting this in quotes, so we shall look at it later on. So this is part of the syntax. For example, I can also choose to print a sum of two numbers, let's say 2 plus 5. So when I click on run, I'll see the results here. So I'll have 7. Now, alternatively, if you don't want to hit run, I can achieve the same when I say print 2 plus, maybe let me say plus 1. Now, I can use shift enter. So when I do shift enter, it will execute this cell and create and goes to the next cell. So it creates another line. So that's part of the syntax. So number 2 is if I need to utilize comments, okay? So let's say I need to add a heading. So let's say I want to print the sum of 3 and 8. So this is a heading. Now a heading is initialized by a hash, okay? So now I can go ahead and print 3 plus 8. So now what happens is the heading is ignored, it's not executed. So when I run this, you see that I have 11. Now what happens if I don't add a hash? So let's see what will happen. Let me just delete this hash and run. Okay, so it has told me syntax error. So there is a problem within my syntax, and it is also pointing me back to the line where the problem is. For example, in line 1, printing, so this is where the problem is. So once I address that, I think the problem will go away, so I'll still have 11. So that's part of the syntax, okay? So let's now look at what we call the variables, okay? Now, let me give you a scenario. In fact, what I've been doing here, I have just been printing 3 plus 8, okay? So, and I have 11. Now, how about I want to take it to another level. Instead of me printing 3 and 8, because in the future, what if I want to get the product of 3 and 8? So will I still do 3 plus 8 and so on? So no. So to make it a little bit structured and organized, we use what we call variables. Now what is a variable? So in simple terms, assuming I have a box, and in this box is where I store my fruits, okay? So the box can now be the variable, and the fruits that I store in the box can be my values. Let me give you an example. Assuming I have a variable number 1, okay? So number 1 might act as the box, and in this box I store a value 3. So 3 is the value. Okay, so now instead of me printing 3, now I can go ahead and print number 1. Okay, so I can write num, then I use the tab key, it will autocomplete for me. So if I run this, I'll see that 3 is printed. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Let me give you another example. I can have a name. A name is the box where I keep my name. Now you're going to see this. Now this time round, I am putting quotes. I say my name is Nuhu Mutebi. Okay, now instead of me printing Nuhu Mutebi, I'll go ahead and print name. Okay, and when I run this, I see that Nuhu Mutebi has been printed here. I want us to note this. Here, when I was initializing my variable, you initialize a variable with an equal sign. I did not put anything in quotes, but here, when I'm using these are words, I'm putting this in quotes. Now, how come these things are appearing like this? This is simply because these fall under different data types. Okay, now the first one, number 1, has a data type of number or numeric data type. Okay, and under numeric data type we have 2 categories. We have the whole numbers or integers, and these are called int. And here int, we also have another type that we call float. But again, there is also a third type that may not be necessary here. It is called complex. So for those of you who have done math, maybe at O level or high school, advanced math, we have dealt with complex numbers. For example, square root of a negative gives us a complex number, so we shall not cover them here. And now here, this is text. So any categorical data called texted, so or any texted data, I think even date can be stored as a string. So we call these ones text or string data types. So how do you know the type of a variable? Here I can go ahead and print, okay, the type. So we use the type keyword of number 1. So when I go ahead and print the type of number 1, you can see that I have it as class. Its class is int. Int stands for integer. Now if I'm to go ahead and print the type of name, type name. So what I'm doing is simple. So I am printing. Now print, the syntax is, once you write print, it is followed by brackets, which are put here. Now in here I want to get the type of name, so I'll print type, and in brackets of type I'll put name. So since I opened another set of brackets here, I have to close it. So that's what I'm basically doing. So when I run this, you can see that now this one has a class of string. So we can give other examples of other data types. Okay, so I can call this numeric, but this is integer, under integer, and now I can call this string. Okay, then other data types, we talked about the float or the fraction, if I'm to call it. Okay, so let me give you an example. A variable like temperature can be used to store floats. Let's say temperature is 37.7. So if I am to print the type of temperature, okay, you can see that the type of temperature is float. All right, these can also be the decimals or the fractions. Another type of variable that we may talk about is the Boolean variable. Okay, let's say am I a student? So I can say is student is equal to true. So Boolean variable true should be capital letter. If it's not capital, then Python will not recognize it. So in case I'm to print the type of is student, you can see that this is a bool, which stands for Boolean. All right, so that is it when it comes to variables, and data types. Now, what is the key take home here? Now, when you're naming your variables, for example, there are particular rules that we should follow. The naming convention. Let me call this the naming convention. So, number one, you cannot start a variable with a number. You can name a variable, it can be uppercase or lowercase, but I cannot have to name is equal to nuhu. So when I run this, you can see I get a syntax error, invalid decimal literal. So, but I can start with an underscore, okay? When I say underscore name, this one is fine, it has no problem. But, of course, I would not recommend this. So, you cannot also create a variable, and you cannot have two words as one variable name. Let's say first name is equal to nuhu. Okay, so when I run this, still I'll get a syntax error. So how do I handle such a scenario? Then I can use an underscore. So first underscore name, I can now get no error. So, and also there are other naming conventions that you can learn about, that you can research about when it comes to dealing with variables in Python. Another concept that we are going to look at is called data structures. Now, in the notebooks, you have code. This is how you write anything that can be executed, okay? But we also have the Markdown. So Markdown is where you can put things like headings. Let's say these are data structures, okay? Now, for example, up here, we can put another cell and call it to Markdown and call it variables and data types, okay? Now here we have data structures. Now, the key data structures that are so relevant or that are so common when it comes to data analytics are lists and dictionaries, okay? But there are also other data structures like tuple, set, and others, so which you can still research and learn about during your free time. So I am going to start with what we call the lists. So what are lists? So this is an ordered sequence of characters or letters or numbers. And the beauty with lists is we say that lists are mutable. Mutable means they can be ordered and also changed, okay? So let me give you an example. Let me say I have prices, and now how do I initialize a list? I'll say is equal to, so prices is my variable name, but this variable stores a list. So lists are initialized by square brackets. So when I open square brackets, Python will understand that now I'm dealing with a list, okay? So assuming I have prices in USDs, 99.99. So I have this list of prices, okay? I can print my variable prices. So you can see now all my prices are displayed on the screen. And also I can print the type of prices. Now when you print type of prices, you can see that it is a list. So let me modify this. Say print, then I'll put a colon space and close the quotes. What did I do wrong? Okay, I'm supposed to put a comma here. Okay, so you can see that my prices, the class is a list. So I hope this makes sense. So when we say lists are mutable or they can be changed, what do we mean here? So for example, on this list, I can actually add another price. So how do I do that? So I'll basically use the append method. So that append, okay, and in brackets I'll pass in what I want to append on my list. So maybe 100.11. So when I print prices again, you can see that 100.11 has been added. Sometimes you may want to access a particular element within the list. So how do we do that? Now I'm going to introduce you to the concept called indexing. Okay, so indexing is basically accessing an element by its position. And now in Python, indexing starts from 0. So the position of an element will start from 0. For example, now I have this list with all these items. So the first item, text, is in position 0. The second one is in position 1, position 2, 3, and 4. Now that is for positive indexing. We also have what we call negative indexing. So for negative indexing, the index of the last element is actually -1, and the index of the first element is negative length of that string. Okay, in case I want to get the index, or in case I want to pick out the first element, so what I'll basically do, I'll separate, so indexing lists. So if I want to say first price is the variable for which I'm storing the value that I'm going to extract out, I'll say is equal to price, and I'll use the square brackets. So I'll pass in the position of the element that I want to access. And now when I print first price, okay, so you can see this is a name error. So there are a number of errors that you're likely to come across. So in case you're to print a name that doesn't exist, then it will give you a name error. Why? It is because we don't have any variable called price, but rather we have prices. So you have to correct this to prices. Okay, so when I run this again, you can see that only the first element has been extracted. So there are so many ways that you can index out a list, an element out of a list. So another thing you can do, another method you can do, is to count the elements in the list. So these are some of the methods that we shall utilize even later on as we analyze our data. For example, if I want to count the total number of elements within the list, so if I need that, I'll use the len keyword. Okay, so I'll say total is equal to len, and in brackets I'll pass in the variable name, which is prices. So when I print total, you can see that I have 5. I can even modify it and say elements in prices. So you can see there are 5 elements in prices. So that's it when it comes to lists, but there are so many methods that you can apply when it comes to the lists. Okay, so I'm going to talk about our second data type, that is dictionary. Now, dictionaries are a little bit different, so they can be utilized in so many ways. Even when it comes to data manipulation, you can categorize a continuous variable or a numeric variable using a dictionary. Okay, so what we are going to do here is just looking at the dictionary. So a dictionary has what we call the key value pairs. So let's look at it. So let's say I'm going to create a dictionary and call it user. How do you initialize a dictionary? We use the curly braces or brackets. So in this user, the user has a name. Now another thing I want to tell you is, I think you guys have been saying that whenever I'm writing a string of letters or strings, I use single quotes. So I want to say that you can also use double quotes when you're initializing strings. I'll use double quotes this time around. I say name, key to value pair. So the key is the name, the value to the name is the name. Let's say the name is Nuhu. Then I'll add another key to value pair. Okay, these are the user details. So age, the value is 30. Okay, but because age is an integer, I won't put quotes. So comma, the city where I'm residing right now is Kampala. Okay, now if I choose to print my user, you can see that everything has been printed. But what if I just want to print out the user age? So I hope you remember the concept of indexing that we utilized in lists. So for example, still when you have a data set and you want to pick out a column, so we also still index. So in the future when we say index out a column, I hope it will make sense. So here, for example, I can choose to print out. Now, if you want to print the user's age, so I'll write print. So to access the user's age, I'll first write the variable name, and within the variable index out the key that I want, whose value I want to be printed. So that is, the key is age. And now when I run this, you can see that my age, that is 30, has been printed. I hope this makes sense. So that is how dictionaries actually behave. So guys, I just want to put a disclaimer. We just learned Python that is just enough to get us started into working with data. All right. Next, we are going to look at what we call the conditional logic. So if, elif, else. Okay. So still I'm going to convert this into a markdown. I can call them conditional statements or conditional logic. So here we look at if, else, elif. All right. So what happens here? Assuming I'm scoring students, so this is something that is so common, okay? So assuming I'm scoring a student, and probably every student will have a score. And now, assuming this student, their score is 80 what? 85, okay. All right, I'm going to use conditional logic for me to be able to assign a grade to the student. So what I'll do, I'm going to use the if statement. So if the score is greater or equal to 90, those who get 90 and above, okay, they get a grade A. And those who score 80, okay, and above, they get grade B. And those who score less than 80, they get grade C. All right. So how do we initialize this? So here we can utilize what we call the conditional statements. So I'll say if. Now after the if, this is the syntax. Remember, as we learn this, we are learning the syntax, how Python works, okay? So if score, all right, is greater or equal to, I hope you are familiar with these operators, so we shall not look at operators. You can read about Python operators and understand them more. So if score is greater or equal to 90, now when we are using the if statement, we use what we call indentation. We do indentation, so you're going to understand. So you put colon, okay? So I told you to do what I do, learn by doing. So when I hit enter, you can realize that indentation is applied automatically. So what is indentation? Indentation is that the spaces that are added, okay, before anything is added, let's say before a text. So before I start writing, there is some space that I add. So Python and notebooks, this is added automatically as long as you add the colon. If I don't add the colon, you can see it starts from there, but once I add colon, it will indent automatically. Okay, let's do it like this. So instead of just putting A, so we are going to print grade is A. So if score is greater or equal to 90, we shall print that grade is A because we want to see output. All right, so again, we shall go back. Now let's first try to run this. So when I run this, nothing is going to happen. Why? Because the score is actually less than 90. So let me convert this to 92 and see. So when I convert that to 92, I'll get grade is A. But what if I take it back to 85? How do I cater for that? So that is where the else comes in. So maybe now I can say else, colon, print other grade. So you can see that if my score is not greater or equal to 90, now I'll have other grade printed. But there are also moments you have more than 2 conditions. So how do we cater for that? So if you have more than 2 conditions, we apply what we call the elif statement. So here we add elif colon and say, let's say, elif score is greater or equal to 80, okay, print grade is B. Okay, so I have to put this in quotes because it is a string. When I add elif, now I can else other grade. Maybe I can say grade is C. So let's try this. When I run this, you can see that I have grade is B because the score is greater or equal to 80, but less than 90. Let's say I put 60. Okay, so you can see grade is C. So that is how conditional statements are applied. Still in data cleaning, we can utilize this to classify items and also categorize items. That aside, we have what we call the loops. So there are moments you don't want to run particular tasks manually over and over. So there are tasks that you have to run manually. So those tasks that repeat over and over, repeating is called looping. This is like processing data iteratively. Okay, so we have 2 types of loops. So let me first add here loops. Convert this into loops. How do they work? We have a for loop. Okay, and now the for loop is what we commonly use in data analysis, but with other advanced machine learning and AI also a while loop can be used. So let me just give an example. I already have prices here, so I'm going to utilize this. I have prices. So in Python, I don't need to now initialize the variable again. It is already there. So if I'm to print prices, you can see I have prices, the new prices after appending the 100.11. If I want to print these prices, each of them individually, then I'm going to utilize what we call a for loop. Okay, so let's say for price in prices. Okay, so even a for loop, the syntax demands that we add a colon. For prices, I can print price. So when I run this, you can see that each price is printed on a separate line. So this is the same as the way I can go ahead and keep indexing out each and every individual column. But again, let us note this. For price in prices, now this is like for every item within this list prices, I want you to print that item. So doesn't mean that if I don't put price, it won't work. I can say for X in prices, print X. So still it will work. But because we are dealing with prices, so it makes sense when we say for price in prices. Okay, so that will make sense. Okay. Sorry, print price. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Now let me take it a little further by applying some bit of a conditional statement, an if statement. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll say for price in prices. Okay, now after that I'm going to say if price is greater than 100, then print, I want to print beyond the margin. So what I'm doing here is I am looping through, I am going through every price item. I ask myself, is it greater than 100? Then I print beyond the margin. Let's see. So you can see for every price where it is greater than 100, it has been printed beyond margin. Now we can see 3 of them are greater than 100. So we can see beyond margin has been printed 3 times. So that is how loops work. Okay, now you have to be very careful when it comes to while loops. So let's look at while loops. I can begin by saying count is equal to 0. So Like I said, these are rare in data, but they are also useful for simulations. So what I'll do is, while count is less than 5, still colon, print count. So now print count, and now count plus or equal to 1. Now what I want is to keep incrementing. So what? Now this is the same as count is equal to new count plus 1. So plus is count plus or equal to 1 is the same as count is equal to count plus 1. So I hope this also makes sense to you now. So what I'm doing here is I initialize a variable called count and I give it a value of 0. And now I say, while as long as count is less than 5, keep printing count, but keep incrementing by 1. So let's see what this prints. So you can say I have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it prints the first count, it adds on 1, you get 1, it prints it, it adds on 1, you get 2, it prints it. Now let's say if I change this increment by 2, you can see 0, 2, and 4 are added. So be careful, you might go into an indefinite loop when you're dealing with while loops, which will consume all your resources and your PC will eventually freeze. Okay, so after that, now we can look at what we call the functions. All right, what is a function? Now a function is basically reusable code that you can utilize for repetitive tasks. Okay, so this will make more sense in the future when we say create a function that does A, B, C, and D. Now to create a function, we use what we call that def keyword. So once you type def, you're defining a function. Okay, let's say in case I want to create a function that is going to calculate for me the tax. Okay, so I'll say, let's say calculate tax. So there are so many simple functions that we can utilize. All right, so here I will say income, okay, is the variable, and again I'll pass in rate as well, and the rate, our rate will be 0.15. so now after that, that function should also use the colon. The function should return a product of income and rate. So income times rate, star is the operator for multiplication. Then I can say tax. Now I can call my variable, okay, calculate tax. Then I'll pass in the income. Remember, the rate is already defined, so here I'll only pass in the income, assuming my income is 60,000 USDs. Let's say, oh, I'm supposed to say is equal to, sorry. So you can see that now when I print my tax, you can see that my tax should be 9,000. Okay, so this is what I return. So maybe this is a bit complex. Let me just create a simple function that is going to add for me two numbers. So def add num, okay, add numbers. Okay, so in brackets the numbers will be A and B. Okay, so now this function should return for me a summation of A plus B. Okay, now let me use my function. num2 is equal to add numbers, so the function, then in brackets I'm going to pass in the two numbers, 100 and the second number is 130. Okay, so when I print num2, I'll be able to have the product of 100 and 130. Okay, so For example, we can create functions to clean text data, remove punctuations, remove duplicates, and so on. So that is where functions can be applied. Now, after this is enough, okay? This is just enough for you to understand how things work, and now you can start following any tutorial that teaches you how to either clean data, work, analyze data, and so on with Python. So now we are going to look at the Python libraries. All right, so now we shall say the first library that we use for data manipulation and cleaning is called pandas. Okay, so what is this pandas? So pandas is an extensive library that is rich when it comes to cleaning and manipulating data. We can now create our data sets and utilize pandas to clean them and analyze them and manipulate. So even when it comes to reading our data and every other thing, we utilize pandas. So let's take this to another level. Pandas has two data types. We have what we call the pandas series and also the pandas data frame. So all the data sets that we, let's say, import from Excel, they are imported in as data frames, okay? We can also create our own data frames. Let me just give you an example. We are going to create a data frame from a dictionary and convert it into a pandas data frame. But before that, a data frame is a collection of pandas series. So a series is like a single column within a spreadsheet. I hope that makes sense. Let me give you an example. This is an Excel data set, okay? So this individual column is an equivalent of a pandas series when you're dealing with pandas, and the entire data set is actually the data frame. I hope this makes sense. So let's go back and explore. But before you to deal with any library, you import that library. For example, we import pandas. So sometimes you don't have particular libraries and you're required to install them. So if you're using Anaconda, use conda install. And if you're using plain Python, we use what we call the pip install. The pip install. So there are also moments you're needed to use the exclamation mark before the pip. Okay? So, but we have these libraries. So if you're using Anaconda, if you installed Anaconda, and you find that the library that we are using is not there, you will have to install it first. All right. So for example, assuming I did not have pandas, I will say conda install pandas. Okay, when I run this, it tells me you may need to restart your kernel, okay, to use updated packages. I don't have time for this. Let me say pip install. So it will take some time to check if I have these dependencies, and for example, you can see requirements already satisfied. So I have pandas installed, but in case you don't have, you'll have to first go through pip install. So I'll just comment out this. Okay, so first thing, but already I have this, so I'll comment it out so that in the future I don't find issues running my notebook. So after that, I'll import pandas. So you import this library, but me typing pandas over and over, pandas might be a long word. I'll import this as an alias, and the alias that I'll use is PD. So saying import pandas as PD, so I'm saying every time I have to use pandas, I'll use PD, okay? So after this now, we've learned about dictionaries before, so I'm going to create a dictionary, and after I'm going to convert this dictionary into a data frame. I hope that makes sense. So let me do it a little bit faster. So I'll call it data. Kindly follow along and do the same. So dictionary is initialized by curly brackets. So I'll hit enter since it is big. Name is the key. I'll give it values, and the values that I'll give it, I'll create a list. That is the first one. So I'll put a comma as usual. Hit enter. Now after here, I'll put their ages. So still it will be a list. Okay. country. All right. Then I also finally put their salaries. This is integer 60,000. So after that, now we have our dictionary. So what is the next thing? So we are going to convert this dictionary into a data frame, pandas data frame. So this is easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call my data frame df, and this is going, now I'm going to use the pandas data frame. I'm going to say pd. Remember, everywhere I have to use pandas, now I can use pd. So dot data frame. Okay, so when I click on data, I just need to hit the tab, then frame. Remember, data should be capital and frame capital. Then in brackets, I'm going to convert my data. So I'll pass in data. Okay. So after that, now I can print my data frame. So print df. So you can see once I print my df, now I have this as a data frame. Now, like I told you that in pandas you have two data types. We have a data frame and a series. So let me show you this. In case I print the type of df, so df is a pandas core data frame. Now, what if I index out name? Okay, I index out name, name2 is equal to df, indexing out, I'll use square brackets, and now I'll pass in name. Okay, so in case I'm to print name2, okay, the type, you can see that when I index out name, it is a pandas core series dot series. I told you every column is treated as a pandas series. So that's how we can utilize pandas to read in our data. So also in the future, to read in data, you'll basically say data or pd.read. If it is a CSV, you say CSV. So we shall look at that in the future. After this, now we can go ahead. Once you have your data frame, you can go ahead and remove duplicates, work on it, and do a lot of other things. Let's say we have this data frame of ours. Now I can go ahead and look at, maybe I can say, what can I look at? Okay, maybe the average. So in case I wanted to look at the mean salary, so I'll go ahead and remember I need the df, so I'll say, I'll call it mean salary. So I'll need df, I index out, okay, the column which is salary. I hope it makes sense. And here I'll say dot mean. So when I run that and print the mean salary, you can see that I have our mean salary, which is 20,750 USDs. So this is how we can utilize pandas to perform some simple calculations. All right. Another common package that we use is called NumPy. NumPy is the package that basically deals with numerical operations. It is also known as numerical Python. And NumPy and pandas go hand in hand, okay? Pandas itself is built on top of NumPy. That is why some of the methods and functions that are used in NumPy also work straight and directly on pandas series. So NumPy has what we call arrays, and it can have a one-dimensional, two-dimensional, and so on. Create a NumPy array. Basically, let's say I can call it array, and I'll say, first of all, you need to import NumPy as, so still as an alias, np. So now, in case I need to create an array called array, I'll say is equal to np, the alias, dot array, and here I can now open brackets, pass in a list of an array. All right. So now when I print, sorry, should be this first, then this. So now when I print the type of RRR, you can see that, okay, let me see where the problem is np.array. Okay, so you see where the problem is. Instead of I imported numpy as dp instead of np. Okay, so this should be np. All right, so we can see that this is a numpy nd array. So there are lots of things that you can do when it comes to numpy. So after here, you can possibly research more and more about numpy, but now you're good to go when it comes to data manipulation and cleaning. Now the third one that we are going to look at is matplotlib, and this one can help us to do data visualizations. What we are going to do is we already have our pandas data frame. Okay, here with matplotlib, still we shall need to import matplotlib. What we are much more interested in, .pyplot. So .pyplot as plt. Okay, and now here we already have our pandas data frame here. So we are going to utilize this to create a simple visualization. So what we're gonna do here is we are going to plot a figure, plt.figure, this one at the bottom, and again in this figure we are going to pass in the size, basically figure size. So this is fig size, okay, is equal to, then we shall pass in an array, so 8, 5. Okay, that's our figure size. And again now we shall plot a bar, plt.bar. Okay, and in this bar we are going to get df and index out, df index out. Now we shall index out the name. Okay, this name should be a string. And again also get df index out salary, so we are interested in the salary. And now after that we can give it even a color of our choice and say maybe color is equal to, we can give it green, that's my color. So also we can say the edge color, so the edge color, do we need that? Okay, maybe edge color, we give it which color, maybe black. After that we can try to add labels. So when I run this, you can see that I have a plot. Okay, now I have the edge colors, you can see it's black. Now I have also the prices printed. Now this is a basic, very basic chart. So what I can do now, probably I can go ahead and add some bit of labels. Okay, so to add labels, I'll add the title, plt.title. I can call this salary by name. Okay, you can also give it a font size. You know, Python lets you program anything that you want. For font size, I can give it 14. Then after that, what else? Maybe I can say the x-axis plt.xlabel. Okay, so xlabel, I'll give it, that is name on the x-axis. We have the names. All right, font, I'll leave it as a default. Then plt.ylabel, then I'll give it salary, and this salary is in USD. Okay, so when I run this again, you're going to see a difference. So you can see now I have a title. Okay, let me make it smaller. So now I have a title, salary by name. I have also the ylabel, salary in USDs, and also have down here the name. So this is the basic, this is the Python that you need for you to get started. So for now, you can now start embarking on projects. For those of you on the Monos platform, please come ask the project and we give you and you get started. And I am sure now you're ready to take on any task or to learn anything as far as Python for data professionals is concerned. So I wish you all the best. If you need to take this as a course, kindly reach out on Damono's platform, but also don't forget to subscribe, share and like this video. God bless you.